I am RamG. Ramgopal Vallath is a full name. People usually call me RamG. The G is for Gopal. I do so many things, so it's very difficult for me to introduce myself as anything specific. You can say that I am a best-selling author, inspirational speaker or keynote speaker, co-founder of a tech startup, and currently also working in Azim RamG Foundation's healthcare strategy to manage COVID-19. That sort of sums it up.
Hello everyone, my name is Srikanth. I am the host of the show Inspire Someone Today. This podcast brings in personalities from a cross-section of our society who will share their perspectives, learnings, hacks and experiences that can inspire all of us in our journeys. Come, join me on this ride. RamG, welcome to Inspire Someone Today. It's a pleasure having you on the show.
Thanks a ton, Srikanth. I am very happy to be here too.
So what really intrigued of the many things that is there on your profile is this whole title that you have called as Growth Mindset Guru. What does that mean? And who is your target audience for this?
So there is a small story behind this. I've been delivering keynote addresses, talks in corporates and in schools for the last 7 years. And about 3 years back, I was in discussions with an organization about delivering a talk to their employees. And they said, we want you to talk about growth mindset because that's a major buzzword in our organization. Mm-hmm. So I had no idea what growth mindset was at that point in time. I quickly Googled it out and I realized it's a term coined by Carol Dweck, who has written a book on growth mindset. And she is the one who sort of researched it out and made it easily accessible to everybody to understand what it is. So I read the book and I realized that's my life. Everything that has happened in my life, which has brought me to this particular level or brought me through this path, is actually growth mindset. So I was able to actually connect a lot of my life experiences to specific aspects of growth mindset. And that is why I call myself a growth mindset guru now, because I'm able to impart to people how to develop a growth mindset. And that's very, very empowering.
That's interesting. So you did mention that a lot of your life you can relate back to the growth mindset. What would some of those things be, RamG?
Well, I've had a very, very interesting life, to say the least. Small village, Malayalam medium, government school, got into IIT Madras, almost flunked out of IIT because of losing focus, managed to graduate from IIT, then did my MBA at XLRI, had a fantastic career, went on to become one of the youngest chief operating officer in the telecom industry, became a director in HP, Dell. And then my career was cut short because of an autoimmune disorder, which sort of crippled me. And I had to reinvent my life completely. And so the reinvention was basically I became a best-selling author. And then I started getting invited for talks, and I became a motivational speaker. I joined up with another friend of mine and became a co-founder of a startup company. So I totally reinvented my life. And reinvention of your life requires growth mindset, And unless you have a growth mindset, you will not be able to take advantage of every single downturn that happens in your life and convert them into something successful. So that's how growth mindset actually became very intertwined in my life.
Mm-hmm. Again, for the benefit of a lot of listeners, if you were to decode what growth mindset is a little more, what would that be?
So it's a very simple definition. Growth mindset, people with growth mindset believe that ability is something that you can acquire through practice and hard work. As opposed to that, the opposite of that is what is called fixed mindset. And that's a belief that your ability is something you're born with. And so there is a limited amount of ability that you have in any specific dimension. And that's what you're born with, and that's what you will die with.
Okay. So it's more about limiting belief and not so limiting beliefs, if I were to kind of put it that way.
Absolutely. And there are various manifestations of growth mindset and fixed mindset. Mm-hmm. And that's what really matters, how you face certain situations in life. If you are having a growth mindset at that point in time versus if you're having a fixed mindset. it's very important to state this upfront that it is not as if a person is always having growth mindset, because that itself goes against the tenet of growth mindset, right? I mean, anybody can grow growth mindset also. That's very important to remember. And almost all people, at times they demonstrate a growth mindset, at times they demonstrate a fixed mindset. Mm-hmm. What we need to try and do is to cultivate growth mindset more and more, so that in majority of the situations, you start demonstrating a growth mindset.
So the default position will be growth mindset in 9 out of 10 situations.
Absolutely. Yeah.
What are those 3-4 things that kind of makes it as a growth mindset?
So, because a person who is demonstrating growth mindset believes that every experience that they have is something which will add to their knowledge or add to their skill set or expertise, growth mindset people are typically very risk taking. Mm-hmm. Whereas people with fixed mindsets, they are worried that if they are unable to perform well in a particular task, that shows up their inadequacy or their lack of an ability. And hence, they are worried about taking that step or taking the risk in life. So, for example, I'll give you an example from my own life.
Sure.
As I said, I studied in small village, Malayalam medium school, government school, and I had no self-doubts at that point in time because I had nobody to compare myself with. There was nobody else even studying for an engineering entrance exam, let alone studying for an IIT. Nobody even knew what an IIT was. So I was at complete isolation, and I had all the time to study, try problems out, become better and better at those things, and become really good at solving difficult mathematical or physics or chemistry problems. Once I got into IIT, and I got in with a fantastic rank, and my entire family was talking about it. My extended family in my district, I think most people knew about me, and I became the talk of the town, so to speak. So when I got into IIT, the pressure was on me to continue to perform well. Mm-hmm. Because I thought if I don't perform well, then it will show up my inability, my lack of ability compared to the rest of my classmates. And I realized that I was pretty average in the class. I mean, there are many people who are much better at the concepts than I was. And because I got scared of that, rather than putting an effort to become better, I started pretending as if I don't care. And I sort of gave up the race, and I got into all kinds of habits, which finally saw to it that I flunked out of IIT. I didn't flunk out of IIT. I flunked 1 year in IIT, and I graduated only in 5 years instead of 4. So this is a very classic case of your own success becoming a detriment for your growth mindset. You get fixated on a fixed mindset, and then you stop trying out new things.
Wow, that's a great example. You can't take anything for granted. Part of growth mindset is you keep learning, you keep that's why it's called as a growth mindset.
Yes, that's true.
Fantastic. So what is that, apart from risk taking, apart from continuous learning, any other attributes around this that one needs to have, one need to develop on?
No, so there are different aspects of the same thing. So for example, the other one is people who are having or demonstrating a growth mindset typically are very, very keen to learn new things, mm-hmm. including their own gaps. So I'll give you an example. If you look at kids, there is 2 kinds of kids who come after an exam. There's one type who is scared of discussing any question in the question paper because they don't want to know whether they have failed or not, or did badly in one question or not. There is another set of kids who immediately come, look up the textbook to see if what they answered is right or not. Okay.
Right.
The second is actually demonstrating a growth mindset. You don't mind. I mean, for you, the exam is not the end thing. The exam is just a reflection of how much you prepared for yourself. And you're willing to prepare more to become better. And the only way you can prepare more is to know your current gaps. So somebody with a growth mindset will be very, very, very eager to get into challenging positions so that they know that they are stretched and there are certain aspects which they are not good at, and then go back and learn. So the ones with growth mindset are constantly learning, and they love learning. They're eager to learn. Whereas the people with fixed mindsets, they are scared of taking on challenges. Why? Because if they take on a challenge and God forbid they do badly, they will be thinking that, oh my God, the whole world will know that I'm an idiot, that this is only this is the ability that I have. And rather than let the world discover how little ability I have, I would rather hide. So that's another aspect of growth mindset, right?
Okay.
I mean, these aspects also lead on to some other aspects as well. So, for example, another one is there are some people who are very status conscious, and they think that learning from somebody who is at a state in terms of stature or position below them is something which they cannot do. So they don't want to expose their lack of knowledge on a particular area with somebody who is a subordinate or somebody who is considered to be inferior in some way. And so you will find that they get stuck in that particular position because they are very scared of asking for help or asking to learn new things. They don't reach out. And so it's a self-fulfilling prophecy. They continue to be stuck in that particular status. They don't grow. And hence they plateau out in life. Whereas the one with the growth mindset, what they do is they are eager. They always want to learn new things. And they don't mind talking to anybody at any level to learn new things. So, I have had this couple of examples in my life where growth mindset has majorly come to my rescue. So when I was in Airtel and I was a general manager sales and marketing to start with, our operation was going through a very, very tough phase. And I was completely new to telecom industry. I was selling hardware before that, and I came into telecom industry. I didn't know how to sell a service. I had no idea about customer base increase or how to get revenues out of a growing customer base, how to grow revenue per customer every month, all those kind of things I had no clue about. But the one thing that came to my rescue was that I had no status consciousness that prevented me from going and learning from anybody and everybody. And I reached out across different functions, whether it is marketing or finance or telecom technology or customer service. And I learned as much as I can. And because I was willing to go to any level and learn from anybody, I managed to do very well. And I became the youngest COO in the telecom industry in the country at 34. Now, from there, I had to move to Dell. And when I moved to Dell, I was supposed to be director sales for about handling $1 billion revenue. I was supposed to handle a team of close to 1,000 people based in Hyderabad, handling over the online sale as well as telephonic sale of close to $1 billion in EMEA, that is basically English-speaking part of Europe, which is Ireland and England, Ireland, Scotland, etc. And once I joined there, unfortunately, there was a reshuffling just before I joined, reshuffling in the organization, and I ended up with having no job. Oh. I got into Dell, and they said there is no role available for me. So I was given a table and made to sit there as a director. And to be very kind to me, they also gave me an admin support, a secretary. And there were two of us hanging around doing nothing. Okay. And here I was, I had a full P&L responsibility before that, CEO of a telecom circle, intensely operational role, working 16 hours a day, and very proud of the fact that I was doing so well, wanted to become a CEO of a Fortune 500 company by the time I was 45, all that. And I land up here and I have no role. And then I did not give up. I just kept pushing everybody, saying, give me something to do, give me something to do. Finally, I was told to roll out a certification program for call-taking agents in India. And creating a certification program is done by a very specific HR function, right? And I had no idea how to do it. But I was very excited because I was going to learn something new. So I got into it. And within a year, that became one of the biggest initiatives of Dell worldwide. And I and two others from Round Rock, US, we became the key persons behind driving this certification program for every call-taking agent, about 15,000 people across the world. And the only reason I think I could do that was I had growth mindset at that point in time. I had no status consciousness. I was willing to go and learn from anybody and everybody, saying that I had no idea what this field is. Please teach me. And it came to my rescue. And within a year's time, I became one of the most visible guys from Dell India in the head office.
Wow. This is like turning challenges into opportunities, isn't it?
Exactly. And the only people who can do that, are the people who have growth mindset. Super. Who are able to convert every downturn into a success.
Great set of examples. I think touching on that particular piece, Ramji, you did mention about at the age of 34, you were the youngest COOs in corporate India, and you had big vision of making it big to the Fortune 500 companies globally. And then life stuck at you, and unwanted the incident happened. Life stuck at you, but there was no looking back for you. You reinvented yourself in a different way. You came out winners. The person that you are today is just a testimony to all of it. And again, there are so many people listening out there, a lot of youngsters who are at either crossroads or had similar kind of either personal or professional challenges. What would be your advice to folks like them?
Never be scared of doing new things. That is number one. Every time you try something new, you will either succeed or you will fail. If you succeed, that's fantastic. You've mastered something new. If you fail, all it shows is that there is a particular skill set or a knowledge set that you're lacking in. And it will actually help you then become a better person by showing that gap in yourself. And then you can go about learning new things. So that is number one. Number two, then corollary is that we also willing to learn something new all the time. So in fact, just half an hour back, I was talking to my son who is 19 years old. And I was giving him the same advice, how to grow growth mindset, right? And there are two things that you need to do. Number one is every day, do something slightly differently or do something which is slightly different from what you have done before. Each time you do that, this is a matter of the brain actually, because the brain is something which is very plastic. We know that today from a lot of research in neurosciences. You know that the brain is constantly rewiring itself. Depending on what you're learning, the brain creates new connections within itself. This billion cells in your brain are all connected to each other. There are trillions of connections in the brain. And those connections are constantly changing depending on what you're learning. And what you're focusing on will become strengthened and strengthened and strengthened. So when you do something new each day, try something new every day, your brain is becoming agile. It is learning to be adaptable. It is learning to become fearless in trying out things. And the more you do that, the better you get at trying new things. And hence, obviously, the better you get at growth mindset. So that's one aspect. The second thing that I told him is that each month you take on something new to learn. It can be a new skill set. It can be a new technology. It can be a new subject. It can be a new language. And focus on really learning that well for that month. Put your entire might behind it and become good at it. And if you do that, and there are, of course, certain things which will stretch over a year. It doesn't have to be completed in a month. But what you're doing is every day you are trying to learn a little extra. And what it does to you in that case, it also makes you great as a learner. Your flexibility of your brain or your mind becomes so strong that you're always able to figure out the best way to handle things in life. Take advantage of every opportunity or every downturn that comes your way. So do these two things on a daily basis, you can become really, really good at demonstrating growth mindset 99% of the time in life.
Wow, super. It looks so simple. So just that somebody needs to be consistently doing that. Do slightly different every day and learn something new every day. So looks very, very simple, Ramji. Thanks for those insights.
You're welcome, man. So, the thing about growth mindset is that it not only makes you better in an organizational situation. For example, if you're a leader, I'm sure all of us have come across managers who are very impatient with their subordinates. They want the results, and if they don't get the results which they expect, they start questioning the ability of the subordinate, right? And then there are managers who are true leaders who expect results, and they really task their subordinates very strongly, but they also spend time in understanding the gaps in the subordinates' knowledge or skill and help bridge that gap. They become coaches. It is the second type of people who are transformational leaders. because they bring out the best in their subordinates. Now, if you have a manager who is constantly putting you down for the gaps that you have, you start retracting. You start losing confidence, and then you start also not even wanting to perform at all, because the moment you perform, you might fall short, and then the manager would take you to task. So you start moving away from volunteering for tasks. You start moving away from difficult tasks. You never take on difficult challenges. You never take on targets or goals which are difficult. And that's a classic example of how an organization then starts shrinking because the leader is not having growth mindset. Now, the leader who has growth mindset, on the other hand, knows that ability is something which can be learned by practice, by hard work, by using new strategies. And so the leader, half the time or even more, they would spend not tasking the subordinates, but by spending time with the subordinates to figure out what are the gaps they have and guiding them in terms of how to fill those skill gaps or knowledge gaps, as well as challenging them to come up with new strategies to overcome those gaps. So for an organization, having leaders who have growth mindset and demonstrate that becomes very important, because then it becomes an organization which is truly growing not in terms of revenues or profits, but growing in terms of abilities. And the more the organization grows in terms of abilities, the easier it would be for it to pick up new innovations, new areas to perform in, as well as do exemplary well in the areas that they are already operating in. So you will have a bunch of people who are totally motivated, who are feeling cared for, who feel that the leader has compassion and that the leader cares for them. And one of the key areas for engagement in an organization is knowing that the leader cares for you. If you look at Gallup got this Q10 survey, and one of the key questions there is, do you feel that somebody in the organization cares for you? And if you feel that, you feel engaged.
Very beautifully put. I think you have a lot of good points out there. One of the things that came to my mind was also that if you focus on just identifying the gaps and not putting the gaps, then the gap will remain. And you very succinctly put it, as a leader, one of the things is just not to identify the gap, but help somebody to kind of fill that particular gap.
Yeah. So great leaders are actually coaches. Great leaders are people who not only stretch their employees, but also enable the employees then to reach those stretch goals.
Nice. And related to that, Ramji, one of the pieces that you have kind of very repeatedly stated, even in your books that you have authored, is about having a very positive outlook. So when you are positive, you seek solutions, vis-a-vis when you are not positive, you don't look at solutions. And how do you kind of beat the negative spiral by having this kind of a mentality? Can you share some thoughts on that?
So how do you beat the negative spiral? It's a very simple solution. And it is actually a simple solution, because the way you beat the negative spiral is by focusing on the solution and not on the problem. Okay. So it's very easy for anybody who has been really delivered a massive kick in the backside by fate to then sit and cry over it. And when I got sacked from a job as a director of operation in a multinational company, I had two options. I could sit and curse the organization, and it was a very, very unfair treatment. I was sacked for no fault of mine, but for something which has been in the organization way before I joined the organization, and they sacked me because I was the senior most person in that particular function. But instead of spending time on cursing the organization, finding out fault with every person who did me in, or sitting and cursing the organization, what I did was, within about 2-3 hours, I started looking for what is the best way to manage the situation. How do you find a solution for your problems rather than how do you sit on the problem and cry about it? So within a day, I managed to get 2 other fantastic job opportunities, and which was both actually equally exciting for me. And every time that's happened in my life, I've had, for example, this autoimmune disorder which crippled me, and the doctors had no solution. I mean, the doctors put me through normal medications, which are steroids and a couple of other intravenous drugs, which was not fixing the problem. And I was spending 20 lakhs per annum on medication, but my body was continuously becoming weaker and weaker and weaker, inexorably. And I had to figure out a solution for myself. So I did a lot of research by myself and found a doctor in the US who was treating patients with autoimmune disorders. I went for that treatment. It was a clinical trial. I was the 19th patient in the world who went through that treatment. It was a risky treatment. And it got back 90% of my lost abilities. My strength came back. My balance became better. I could hold things in my hand instead of dropping it all the time. So it was just a matter of focusing on the solution. And so I say, you focus on the solution, you become more positive. And the moment you focus on the solution and you start finding solutions, you become happier. Whereas if you focus on the problem, it's again back to the brain. The more you focus on the problem, the more your brain will hardwire the problem in your brain. And then you become depressed and you become dejected. Whereas the more you're seeking solutions and you find new inspirations or innovative ideas, your brain immediately releases something called dopamine. And dopamine makes you feel happier. So finding solutions makes you happier. Sitting on the problem and focusing on the problem makes you depressed.
So there's also a secret key to happiness there.
Well, these things actually go completely hand in hand. Growth mindset, positive thinking, resilience, and happiness. They're all intertwined. Each one feeds on the other. So the few things that you do on a daily basis to strengthen positivity will also help you strengthen happiness, which will help strengthen your resilience. It'll help strengthen your positivity. And then if you're more positive, then you'll become more happy. You'll become more resilient. So each one helps the other. And finally, by doing a set of four or five things, you can become really, really happy, positive, successful, everything.
Wonderful. You are a great case study. You're a great source of inspiration to a lot many people. So if there is an Inspire Someone Today message for all of us out here, what would that be?
What is the one single message that I can give you? The one thing that I found in life, which has really helped me maximum, is that try and see how you can add value to as many lives as you can. The more you do that, the happier you feel. The more you do that, the better you become at things. Rather than worrying about your status, how much you're growing in terms of financials or position, you focus on helping others. That will have a happiness effect in your brain. And that happiness will in turn feed into positivity, in turn feed into resilience, in turn feed into growth mindset.
Excellent message. Thank you, RamG. So RamG, you have been a successful author of a couple of books. Third book is in the making. If somebody were to kind of come to you at a later point of time and say, we want to make a memoir of your life, what would you call the title of that book?
So, by the way, I must tell you that there is already a bit of a memoir of my life, which is the 8th grade textbook chapter in Macmillan's textbook. So a lot of kids are actually learning about my life and hopefully getting inspired by learning some of that, And I was very lucky because I was in the right time at the right place. Not that, my life is anything exceptional, but I was able to articulate some of the learnings well enough for them to take it to the children. So what would I call my life? Maybe I would call it bounce. Because you have to bounce. You can bounce from any situation. And the harder you fall, the farther you bounce up.
Right. So this is a BOWNS bounce.
That is my TED talk. Yeah, bounce is my TED talk, BOWNS.
Okay.
Yes.
This is a real bounce.
This is a real bounce.
Fantastic. RamG, it's been an honor for me to have you on this show and share so many nice nuggets of what to have as a mindset, growth mindset, and what can people do in order to practice growth mindset and in turn practice positivity and happiness. Thank you so much for sharing your pulse of wisdom. Looking forward to more connects and all the best on your launch of your third book about positive parenting.
Thank you so much, Srikanth. And it was my honor to be here. Thank you so much.
Thank you, RamG.
Thank you for listening into today's edition of Inspire Someone Today. It's been a privilege to bring in these conversations. If you like this episode and have any feedback or comments, do mail me at inspiresomeonetodaypodcast@gmail.com. Inspiring someone is like creating ripples around us. If you like what to listen, feel free to share them and let's create ripples of inspiration. Do not forget to follow me on my Instagram handle @InspireSomeoneTodayPodcast for all the latest updates. This is Srikanth, your host, signing off, and until next time, keep inspiring.